This is my container-grown dwarf pink lady apple tree. It was planted in a container in spring of 2021. A pink lady apple tree does require a cross-pollination from a different apple variety from a compatible flowering group. In other words, you need a different variety that flowers at the same time. If you have two apple trees of different varieties and they don't flower at the same time, they're not going to produce fruit. Being that I'm in zone 5B and I have a lot of cold weather, I have to put this tree in the shed for added protection. I began taking the tree out of the shed on days that reach over 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I also return it to the shed at night when there's any close, remote chance of frost. And I am fully aware the size of this container is not sufficient to grow a dwarf-sized tree. However, increasing the pot size would best be done during its dormant stage of late fall or late winter, early spring. Spraying your tree with a fungicide during dormant season is definitely important when growing any fruit tree. Some fungicides can be used throughout the growing season and not only while dormant. It's best to get to know your fungicides and your products and read the labels and use them as instructed. A container-grown tree does require to be fertilized. Fertilizing your tree should start in early spring and stop before fall. Fertilizing your tree gives it strength to put on new growth. You do not want new growth just before it starts to freeze. I also forgot to mention, when you're spraying your dormant sprays over the dormant season, you're also decreasing your risk for pests. There are a lot of organic options for spraying your trees, and they do not necessarily have to be harmful chemicals. There are plenty of options to keep pests off your trees that do not harm the beneficial pollinators. One of my favorite ways to keep pests off of a fruit tree is bagging the fruit. You can do this individually, or you can actually bag the entire tree. Another great way to keep pests off your fruit trees is to keep the ants away. Anytime you see an ant crawling on your fruit tree, just know it's going to be a problem. Ants often farm other insects such as scale and aphids. As far as a watering schedule goes, I cannot exactly tell you how to water your tree. Your climate is going to be different and you're going to have different watering needs for your tree. The only advice I can give is do not overwater the tree, and if you're having a lot of rain coming in, provide it some shelter so it does not get constantly rained on every day. Also, do not let the soil dry out for a long period of time. Speaking of soil, did you know there's actually no soil in potting mix, and you should not use anything that contains actual soil in a growing pot unless it's a raised bed. So that being said, make sure you have a good draining potting mix. The other tree I'm growing in a container was also planted in spring of 2021. This is a multi-grafted fruit cocktail tree of Pixie Peach and Nectarine Babe. This multi-grafted fruit tree with more than one variety of fruit on it is a super dwarf, so it should do better in a container than your regular dwarf-sized tree. A lot of fruit trees come in different sizes: ultra dwarf, dwarf, semi-dwarf, and standard. Typically, most fruit trees are grown through grafting. The process of grafting not only helps control the size, it also ensures to have the exact same fruit as the mother tree. So this particular fruit cocktail tree, the Pixie Peach and Nectarine Babe, is actually not meant for my growing zone. I'm in zone 5B, and this tree, I believe, is for 6 through 9. The care I give the Pixie Peach and Nectarine Babe multi-graft tree is completely different from the apple tree, though I do store them both in the shed over winter. Though both of these trees do require chill hours, which means they need to be exposed to cold temperatures for a certain amount of time, which is why I do keep them in the shed. The multi-grafted peach and nectarine tree was brought indoors late March. Once I brought it indoors in late March, I no longer exposed it to any cold temperatures. I did have to hand pollinate the tree because no pollinators are out this early in my area. I used different methods to get the tree the light it needs. Some days I use artificial lighting. Other days, when it was sunny, I put it in an unheated greenhouse. Today it's 70 degrees and April 12th, so it is being exposed to direct sun. Both of these trees require direct sunlight, which is 6 to 8 hours. So, being that this fruit cocktail peach and nectarine tree is out of my zone, it's more than likely going to have to stay in a container unless I provide it more winter protection. The pink lady apple tree can be grown in my zone, though it does not do best in zone 5. I will more than likely be putting it in the ground within the next couple of years. I do have other fruit trees that are being grown in ground. This was A-Hill Gardener with a video on how I overwintered my container grown fruit trees. This video does not contain all the information to successfully grow a fruit tree. If anything, I hope you were able to learn something. If you are new to growing fruit trees, this is just the beginning of your adventure. There is a lot more to learn.